Hi. Because you're listening to this podcast, you know exactly how powerful a good podcast really is and how important the right guests are. And that guest could be you. The show today is sponsored by speakonpodcasts.com. They're the world's leading podcast booking agency for B2B and tech brands. And they get people like you on podcasts like this. Find out exactly how good they are by going to speakonpodcasts.com/leader. Fill in the form and they'll send you 3 podcasts that you should be on. Fuel your brand on podcasts. speakonpodcasts.com/leader. Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, and this is a podcast about the future of marketing. Every week or so, I have the pleasure and the privilege of interviewing one of our industry's leaders, and this week is no different. I'm on a call with Cicero Hennemann, who is Marketing Technology Lead Western Europe at Reckitt. Cicero, for those in the audience who don't know who you are and what you do, can you give them an overview?
Hi, Tom. Pleased to meet here. I'm the tech guy, right? I've had a couple of tech-related roles in the past few years across industry names like Reckitt, Comscore. Then I went to a short stint at Transmission Agency. Then joined the FMCG world with dunnhumby, and then now I am at Reckitt. So I've been here and there in different technology, media, and marketing roles, and now doing a lot of that at Reckitt out of London, but in a European role.
And so across that varied background, what has been the best investment of your time, energy, or money?
You know what, Tom? I think one of the most fun things that I've done to understand everything was building my own website. I mean, I don't have it live right now, and not necessarily my own website, but just websites for people, because it just gives you that very well-rounded experience of, thinking about what you actually have to say, right? And how do you actually do it from scratch? How does everything work from SEO, from maybe Facebook, all of those platforms? What do you do with them? And having that nitty-gritty detail, failing a lot more than succeeding, and seeing how hard it can be to build something, and really thinking what you have to say. In the end of the day, was a really good exercise, and it gave me a lot of grasp to do my actual job, both at Reckitt and everywhere else.
And when you say you built your own website, do you mean scratch, like you wrote all the code and then drove all the traffic to it and so on? Or do you mean like setting up a Squarespace?
I mean, from who do I hire? Do I get HostGator or GoDaddy? Like all of the basic stuff, right? So you understand a little bit of infrastructure, then you go and, okay, I need a CMS. Oh, I need, the homepage. I need to have a flow to it. What is the content that I put there? The images. How do you make it go fast? Right? How does it show up in Google? Right? So you just learn the basics, and you learn, how do you see what people are doing, and if you receive a lead or if people read your content, right? It's good fun. And then after I did that, I've helped some people as well, right? Again, just for fun, just to understand how the pipes work. Had a few friends who had, websites with meaningful numbers of visitors, so helping them out to also understand. They had YouTube channels, so you understand a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes there. Facebook campaigns at times, so you understand how Facebook ads runs from, building the pixels and all that kind of stuff. I think it was all good fun, right? To help small businesses or individual entrepreneurs just to get them up and running. So I have all this, marketing knowledge. I might not know how things work, but I do know how to use the search bar in Google, right? If you know how to ask the right questions, you must just find what you're looking for.
So the only other person that said that in 140 shows to my knowledge, is John Hall, who's the I think VP at Whirlpool, home appliance manufacturer, and his view was actually fed to him by Gary Vaynerchuk of all people, was that you should have a working knowledge of everything, even if you're awful at it. It ceases to become a black box. It's something that you have some kind of vernacular, or you can't just like cross your fingers and hope it works out. But I'm curious to know, what was the website?
So I had a website that I helped my partner to build. So she was offering all kinds of services in digital design, right? So something around lead gen in there. Then I had a family business that needed an e-commerce. So I built an e-commerce website from the ground, decided, are we going to use Shopify? Are we going to use something different? So you understand about product management systems. Then I had a family hotel that needed building the website. So you look into the integrations with booking engines and that kind of stuff. Then someone else had a blog with, over 600 articles on it and a lot of traffic coming in. YouTube channel with, over 4,000 hours. So all of these things you see like actual digital assets and how they perform, right? And how you can make them better. So yeah, a lot of different stuff. So you see different use cases and how different business models need different tools as well, right? A booking engine for a hotel is completely different from an e-commerce store, right? And all of these nitty-gritty details are really fun to learn if you're a marketeer and a tech guy.
So if you're taking on 3 or 4 family projects to try and help those guys out and building them from the ground up in a lot of cases, and you have a pretty weighty position at Reckitt, how do you deal with overwhelm when you've said yes to so many things and you find yourself with a to-do list that's longer than there are days in the week?
I did have a big crunch time when I was doing all of that. And it was just right in the middle of COVID, right? So family business suddenly get shut down because of COVID. You have to, get it done, right? So setting all of those things up, working Saturday, Sundays, having my partner help me to do that, and obviously enjoying it in the beginning, but at some point you just need to kind of offload it, right? I think I did it for a couple of months, running all these things at the same time. And at one point, I've became overwhelmed. I said, I cannot do all of these things, right? So you need to kind of stop and see where are you actually adding value to those people, but are also adding value to yourself. The primary reason why I went into this is because there was value to me, right? Learning all of these nitty gritty would certainly help me to be better at my job and understand things better. I always say that I've entered the internet back in the year 2000 and never got out, right? So I do have a passion for it. But at one point, I just didn't have more of that divide of not being in front of a desk. So the way you go about of not getting that overwhelm is just, write what is important for you and what are you getting out of it? Is it worth the effort, right? And I had gotten out the value that I needed. So I just said, okay, I'm going to now, do the project legacy of what I've done. How do I offload and transition to the people who manage this and, do this in a sensible way, just not to let everything drop. And it worked, right? Things are in a much better position today. And yeah, things are running for everyone.
I'm glad to hear that you dealt with that overwhelm and things are going in the right direction. So amongst all of that experience, I'm keen to know if you have any killer marketing advice, just trying to make things easy here. Have you got that one line that you play back to other people and think, that really encapsulates my view of this industry?
I have. Unfortunately, it's not mine. So this is a presentation that I've seen from Bjarke Ingels, the architect. He's super futuristic. He has great projects, and he says the future is already here, right? It means that the future is already happening, just not at the same time for everyone. That means that what the future might look like is happening maybe in the UK or maybe in different markets or in different places. And you see that a lot, right? You see when Tesco tried to debut their 1 hour delivery, back in 2018 or 2019, and we weren't ready, but it doesn't mean that, it wasn't happening. And today you see a lot of different players trying to come in and be that future, right? So it was already happening then, and now it's just accelerated. And in a lot of different areas, you will be able to find those things, and live it and enjoy it. It enriches our lives. It makes things more interesting, make it better. And yeah, I always try to be there, right?
So
to find those pockets.
So how do you work out the difference between something that is the future and something that's just in the present?
So I think what is the future is that, the adoption curve, right? So early adopters and so on. And I think the way that work out is just critical mass, right? There isn't really a lot of critical mass sometimes. The things that you are doing doesn't mean they're not the future. And I can give you, basic examples from not having ever watched broadcast TV in the UK, right? So since I moved here 6 years ago, I just wasn't tuned into it. From, using deliveries from the day that I've also moved to the UK, but there are more fine details, right? Using QR codes. I remember when I bought my latest iPhone and I scanned over a QR code and then with the camera, and then the QR code just popped up, right? And that wasn't a thing because I didn't have the phone before. And it's not like I bought a phone that just launched, but I just wasn't in that future that other people were living because they just didn't have that, right? So you see now how QR codes are in menus. And I was reading an article the other day talking about, menu analytics, right? So the future is already here on menu analytics. How do you drive higher, orders in your restaurant based on what analytics can you see when people scroll to the menus? It's not a thing, but I'm sure that it will become very soon.
So my concern is that, you've got a marketer who's trying to do a job for Reckitt brands or whoever, and then there's, ad tech there's tons of suppliers, including my own. But how do you make sure that you're not just spending your entire time trying to find out where the future is happening and not just getting the job done? How do you find that balance between investigation and hitting your targets?
Yeah, I think in the FMCG world, it's super tough, right? I mean, there are products that people use it every day, and there's not a lot of tech around it, right? It's not very complicated to use them, and you gotta have that critical mass, right? A lot of people use it, and you just need to be there also when people need it. So with technology, for me, it's just striking the balance of, effort, of how much effort do you need to put something out there, and does it actually drive value to your consumer, or you just want to talk, about something, or, nothing that has really relates to your consumers. And you see a lot of that with brands, that they just want to talk about something and they don't really think about if it's reaching the consumer and adding value to them. So I think when it comes to technology, the content and the story and the conversation is a lot more important than the actual delivery method, right? And I see a lot of times, and I think that the name of this podcast speaks to it, right? The shiny new object. Some people want to do technology for the sake of technology, and you got to keep reminding yourself that technology is just a delivery method, right? So you don't do data for the sake of data. You do the data because there's a business objective behind. And every time people talk to me about technology, I always try to bring it back. What are you trying to do? What is the business objective of what you're doing? And if people don't have the answer, then, we go back to the drawing board to make sure that, we're serving the business and not serving the technology for the sake of technology.
This episode of the Shiny New Object podcast is brought to you in partnership with MadFest. Whether it's live in London or streamed online to the global marketing community, you can always expect a distinctive and daring blend of fast-paced content, startup innovation pitches, and unconventional entertainment from MadFest events. You'll find me causing trouble on stage, recording live versions of this podcast, and sharing a beer with the nicest and most influential people in marketing. Check it out at www.madfestlondon.com. So we're at the halfway stage now, and we're going to talk about your shiny new object, which is mobile. So it's pretty broad, not old, but also new in lots of ways. But I think we were going to talk about how mobile marketing and the contemporary and the next use of it. So it's a broad topic. We could go anywhere. Tell me why you've chosen mobile as your shiny new object.
It's been my shiny new object for a long time now. I did my thesis on mobile adoption back in 2013, and it hasn't been the same thing, right? It has changed a lot, and it has just changed how people interact with everything around themselves. I think there's still a lot more to come on the way that mobiles enables you to interact with places, interact with other people to facilitate your own life. You see, Apple launching now AirTags and things that have been there, right?
Sorry, go on. What's an AirTag? That's a new one to me.
Oh, okay. So AirTag is like a small device that you're able to track other objects like your wallet, a car, a pet, or something, right?
Like a beacon.
Like a beacon, exactly. And those, kind of existed for a while. But again, we go back to critical mass. When Apple launches something, then
when they invent it, 5 years after someone else has invented it.
Exactly. So that's why I say the future was already there, but we hadn't had the adoption. And I think with mobile, that keeps happening. I think we don't understand where we're going with technology, which is both exciting and scary for everyone, right? Think about, I see in online people with pictures of the airplane and then pictures of people landing in the moon, and that's 66 years apart. So can you imagine, I always look back at movies, the movies when people didn't have mobiles and now they have it, right? And how just it changed people's life and how they interact with their means. And I think for brands and for people, the way that they interact and they converse has been a lot, the path is a lot shorter. So if people are unhappy with a brand, they want to be able to reach out to them, as soon as possible, right? So I tweet a lot to the brands that I'm interacting with. Twitter as a channel for customer care has been super effective any time that I needed to use it, but not all brands have that, very well sorted out. And people are getting ever more used to interacting with brands, companies, both from a purchase perspective, but also from a customer care perspective right now, right? So I've ordered food the other day in the middle of Hyde Park, right? Because Deliveroo now can deliver at that point, and that wasn't part of my life 5 years ago. That wasn't a thing, right? So those things are ever changing, and everything will become, I think, more of this right now approach.
So what do you think is going to change from a marketing perspective? So we've seen 5G come in, and we've seen all of these new technologies that the mobile phone manufacturers bring us to try and differentiate from the other handset that's the same price, that looks the same. But what is actually really going to change? Yeah, sure, you can get like something delivered to you in the middle of Hyde Park on a electric powered scooter or whatever. But fundamentally, you're still going to buy the same things you would have bought had you walked to the Tesco Metro down the road. And for the more complex phones get, what strikes me, and I don't have a data point for this, but it seems that people are doing more and more simple things with their phones. People are installing less apps, with everyone's centers around WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, that we're not really extending the use of our phones. There's these niche use cases where you can, I don't know, on my Pixel, I worked out what my resting heart rate was by putting my finger over the camera, over the light. But like the mainstream use of mobile, is it really going to change that much? What do you think that we might be seeing in a year or 5 years that we wouldn't recognize now?
I think it's the small things. It's not, the big shiny stuff. I'll give you examples. Is how you interact with stuff, right? And being mobile enabled. So I found this app to play Scrabble, right? So now I don't do Scrabble, on paper anymore. I just take a picture from Scrabble and it calculates all of the scores, right? So whenever I'm playing Scrabble, instead of using pen and paper, I use an app, right? And it's not about the mass stuff, but it's about the long tail. So it's not so much what we can all use, but very specific use cases and how many different things we can do with it and the ability to enable it, right? So I've started playing RPG, so role-playing games for those who don't know, Dungeons and Dragons, and as Steve Jobs said, there's an app for that, right? So you don't roll dice anymore. You can roll the dice on your app, and then everyone who's playing with you, whatever they are, they get to see what did you roll, and you play the game, and it does all the math for you, right? And all of these little things, they compound on the way you behave and what you expect, right? How you see little kids trying to pinch Zoom magazines and that kind of stuff. It certainly changes the way that you interact with things around you.
And what do you think about frictionless experiences? So I've noticed on Netflix not so recently where it gives you the option to just play something. So the idea of sort of scrolling through Netflix, trying to find something you haven't already watched or don't like the look of, and just play something. And I've heard those guys talk about in the future, you'll just open your laptop or turn on the app and it will just play something. You won't even get the option. It will just start playing you whatever thing they want to feed you. And I think that for me, that's always been the promise of mobile, is actually not using it. Because it becomes the digital representation of yourself that, when I do walk into a restaurant, I don't need to scan the QR code. It knows that I like cod or whatever it is. Like, do you think that there's a future version of the internet and with mobile marketing and mobile services where we don't have to download an app, or we don't have to go to a web app or whatever it is? Or is that just my fantasy?
I think yes. I already tell my Alexa play some music, and I hope it doesn't start to play anything as I just said it. But I do the same, right? And we do expect, please get it right. It's something that I actually want to listen. They know the time of day. They recognize my voice. They see what I played. It has access to probably my whole history on Spotify. So yeah, why not? I think that's very much what we would want to happen. And I think the same thing with all of the experiences. I think we are seeing some markets mature a lot about privacy, and we probably are taking a sidestep on that. So people will regain a lot of control. But I think as we build that transparency and people start to trust the brands that they trust their data with, they will be able to gain that personalization if they so want, right? If the personalization is as good as you have just mentioned, I think the mobile device will be the epitome of that, right? It will help you to connect and always get that personalization. You just see McDonald's bought a company to personalize all of their menus, right? Digital drive-through menus. So imagine you coming to McDonald's, drive your car in, and then it pops up exactly, a customized experience. Probably your phone will be a part of that personalization, right? You just scan a code or you show your phone or something like that, and it will know what you order, your favorites. Will try to suggest you something new. We've seen that in movies, right? It's not so far-fetched in terms of imagination, and it's certainly not impossible to be delivered. And And the most atomized piece of tech in the house is the phone, right? So I don't think the device will drastically change. I might be wrong there, but I don't expect it to drastically change. But what enables you to do is, right? I don't think the houses will have, flying walls and that kind of stuff. But I think the way that you interact with stuff will get better and better.
So what are brands not doing with mobile that they should be?
So there's a lot of things that brands are not doing with the technology. And let's start with the basics. I bought a L'Oreal product the other day, and I've loved the smell, but I could not figure out what the smell was, right? So I had to go to internet forums rather than to L'Oreal to find it out, because I messaged them on their Instagram profile and I didn't get any response. So it turns out it was cedarwood, and it was something that I really liked. Now I want to find a cedarwood perfume. I still have to sift through Amazon listings and different products and all this kind of stuff. Like, wouldn't it be great if I could have seen the formulation and find more products that have the same scent? So I think that's just one use case, but just the path to actually go into this wild goose chase of something that I want, and the brand is not making it easier for me to find.
And that's something we've all been guilty of at different times. The different companies we've worked for, and a lovely space to leave the conversation. Cicero, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Best way to get in touch with me is through LinkedIn. You have my name probably on the description of the podcast here, and just drop me a line on LinkedIn. I'll make sure that I'll reply.
And what makes the perfect LinkedIn message to you?
I think the perfect LinkedIn message is the one that speaks to me with a great reference on something cultural, a meme. You really show that you're digital, that you live in the same space that I live. I think that's the best way to spark something, maybe something witty. Definitely can remember some guys who sent me really good messages on LinkedIn that even if they weren't right, I reply, I said really good copy. So yeah, really loved it.
Fantastic. Cicero, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Tom.
Hi, just before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to write a review of the Shiny New Object podcast on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whatever it's called these days, or whichever podcast provider you use. We're an indie podcast, so it would go a long way for us if you could just share the word and give us a bit of a support on those channels. That would just be fantastic. If you haven't got time, that's also cool. And yeah, if you could tell your colleagues about the podcast, and also, if possible, don't forget to subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to speak on the podcast or be a guest, or you think I'm asking the wrong questions, anything, I'd be super interested to hear what you think. So please email me at tom@automatedcreative.net. That's TOM at, I'm not going to bother spelling it. Anyway, you'll work it out. Thanks so much.